Okay. Hello and welcome to the third annual Muppet Fan Hall of Fame induction ceremony, where tonight we are inducting 13 of the most prominent and beloved members of our fan community, including celebrity inductees Neil Patrick Harris and Danny Trejo, professional inductees Craig Shemin, Warwick Browlow-Pike, and Leslie Carra-Rudolph, and 8 of our finest general fans. I'm, of course, talking about Peter Savieri, Kenny Durkin, Jamie Carroll, FrogFan76, Tony Whitaker, Matthew Soberman, Julia Gaskill, and Kynan Barker. And to start us out, please welcome your unprepared host, Tori Schmidt. Hi, it's me. You know, the stream started several minutes late because of a glitch outside of my control. I'm not going to blame anybody, but I actually want to blame somebody, so I don't know.
I'll do it.
Oh, Danny.
My fault.
Yeah, and
Sorry,
who's going to get
everybody.
mad at Danny?
My bad.
Danny.
I was going to blame Poggy, but yeah, Danny, we can blame Danny. Welcome. This is going to be a very, hopefully not too long, but hopefully long enough ceremony. And without further ado, we've got, like I said, 13 people to induct tonight. That is more than any class we've had before. So let's not wait. To get things started, please welcome to induct Leslie Carra-Rudolph into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame, Hall of Famer Jarrod Fairclough.
Yay! That's my beautiful flail. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure to be here. And now, my induction. Abby Cadabby was introduced to Sesame Street at a time well after my regular Sesame watching years were over, so I never really had much of a fondness for her in those early days. Like, sure, she was cute and magical, but what else did she have going for her? Like, I didn't have a lot of interest in finding out. I was much too busy wondering why Bert and Ernie weren't getting as much screen time as I'd have liked. Then in 2018, I had the chance to interview Cookie Monster and Abby here in Melbourne, and I had zero idea of what I was going to do with her. Cookie and I were fine. I'd interviewed him in the past and I knew the sort of dynamic we could have, but Abby, stumped, absolutely stumped. I ended up asking my friend and one of tonight's inductees, Kynan Barker, if he had any suggestions, and it was simple. It was make Abby the straight guy. Cookie and I could get silly and muppety and Abby could be the one pulling us into line. Now, if you've watched that interview, which remains to this day my favorite thing I've ever done, you'll know that there is no straight guy in that interview. And that is a testament to one woman who I now know is so much better than any straight guy. And I mean that in every sense of the phrase, Leslie Carra-Rudolph. I met Leslie that day, and within a second, she'd wrapped me up in a great big hug and was flapping her hands like this behind me. And she refused to let me go until I flapped mine as well. And she informed me that this was a fairy hug and these were wings. Like that. I think she could see how excited I was about this entire thing because she hugged me multiple times that day, and every time we did the fairy hug. And not to brag, but when I interviewed Abby and Elmo last year, I remembered the fairy hug straight away, and Leslie was very impressed by it. There's a word for the energy that Leslie brings to Abby and indeed all of her characters, which is joy. Leslie is the human embodiment of joy. She's funny, she's playful, she's sweet, she's weird, but like in a good way, not in a like avoid them on the bus type way. She's the type of person to walk around in a giant foot costume or to recreate a scene from the movie Alien out of what I'm pretty sure was toilet paper rolls, but I could not find the footage where she told us. What Leslie wants is to make you smile, and she's been doing it now for decades. Leslie began her career as a Muppet performer way back in 1996 as Muppets Tonight, playing the buxom Pamela Henderson, as well as 21 other characters over 22 episodes. From there, she moved to the wobulous world of Dr. Zeus, played as Zebra in Animal Jam, and dove deep down into the ocean as the titular Bubbles in the Hanson series Splash and Bubbles. Outside of the world of Muppet Sesame and Henson, she's played Blue from Blue's Clues in the show Blue's Room, as well as the Sprite Ginger in one of my all-time favorite shows, Johnny and the Sprites. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor. She appears in Dracula the Musical at the end of my favorite comedy film, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, And of course, there's no way in hell I could induct Leslie into a Hall of Fame without mentioning her original puppet character, Lolly Pop. Lolly is a wild, loud, candy-gobbling sock whose attitude is as fiery as her orange hair. Even as Leslie dresses in elaborate costumes for comic conventions, Lolly still sits on her hand, delighting everyone around her. But it was in Abby Cadabby that Leslie would finally gain the fame she so rightly deserved. Since Abby's debut in August of 2006, the world has finally caught up to what it seems the puppetry community knew all along. Leslie Carra-Rudolph is a phenomenon. She's done hundreds of episodes, played a plethora of characters. Muppet Wiki puts the current count at 198, and she has been nominated for 6 Emmy Awards. She turned a fairy in training into a damn worldwide superstar, and that little pink ball of fluff is the absolute love of my life. I seriously cannot get across to you how much I adore Abby and how excited I am to see her every time I get to interview her, even over Zoom, and it's all due to the talents of Leslie. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the genuinely hysterical Penny Waxman, CEO of Waxman Records and girlfriend of Dr. Teeth in the Emmy Award-winning yet somehow still cancelled series The Muppets Mayhem, all episodes now streaming on Disney+. How fantastic was it that Muppets Mayhem not only introduced new female characters, but had them played by female performers, and that they were often the best parts of the show. One of my favourite lines in that whole series was is when Penny gives Nora the company in the last episode. You know what? I'm just going to show it to you.
It's all yours. There's Tic Tacs in the top drawer. Do not touch them.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And with that, it's my absolute pleasure and honor to induct Leslie Carra-Rudolph into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. I can think of no one more deserving to join us here. Welcome, Leslie. Also, FYI, the newbies usually bring the snacks, and I'm partial to some Cool Ranch Doritos. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie, wherever you are. Our next presenter. Okay, folks, listen, I know everybody always complains when I do a presentation. Maybe it's because I'm not that good at it. Maybe it's because people are sick of seeing my delightful face. Who knows? But I am inducting a few people today, including both of our wonderful celebrity inductees. Also, for those listening, Jarrod already left. He produced and he got out of here. I'm kidding. We love you, Jarrod. Anyway, I have a little little pre-written speech here. Within the last 5 years, whenever I watch a new Muppet product, there are a couple things I expect. High quality writing, great fan service, and Danny Trejo. At this point, calling Danny Trejo a regular cameo star is an understatement. He's basically a Muppet at this point, having appeared in practically every new Muppet production of the last, over a decade by now. Some projects, Danny appears in more interesting and important roles than characters like Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy, neither of whom were in Muppets Mayhem, but you know who was? Danny Trejo. What makes this so great is not just the love he's shown for the Muppets, but the love the Muppets have shown back to him. Bill Beretta once said that they make it a goal every single time they do a project to include Danny. I mean, how cool is that? They get to work with him in every project, and he seems to genuinely love it. I don't have much else to say, but it is my honor to induct Danny Trejo into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He deserves it. He deserves it. And happy 80th birthday, Danny. Trejo. Danny Trejo, not the other Danny. All right. Now, switching gears a little bit, we have a lot of very vocal Muppet fans being inducted tonight. People constantly who write or talk about the Muppets online, and somebody on a much more famous caliber who constantly talks about the Muppets and fits that description is Neil Patrick Harris. He constantly talks about his love for the Muppets in interviews, and whenever he gets the chance. He's been in documentaries, helped fundraise the Jim Henson wing at the Museum of the Moving Image, and is never afraid to work with Muppets, whether that's Zooming with Fraggles, being a fairy on Sesame Street, or somehow answering the phones and not being the host on The Muppet Show. Neil is unafraid to show the love for the Muppets, and the Muppets seem to love him back. I mean, who else gets a doozer? Neil Patrick Harris. That's who. And that is why it is my absolute honor to induct Neil Patrick Harris into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. Oh, now if you excuse me, I have to do a little reading real quick. Give me a second. Oh, fascinating. Fascinating. Good book. Hold on. I know. It's rude to read in the middle of the ceremony, but I just got a little bit of an itch. Anyway, oh, sorry. To induct Craig Shemin into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame, please welcome soon-to-be Hall of Famer himself, Matthew Soberman.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I on? I was reading this fascinating book about the Jim Henson legacy, available with a donation to the Museum of the Moving Image or Center for Puppetry Arts. Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew Soberman, and Tough Pigs writer and proud reader of Sam and Friends, the story of Jim Henson's first television show. Makes a lovely Flag Day gift. Before I begin, I do want to ask, who here hasn't heard of Craig Shemin before? Show of hands? I see a few hands up in the back, so let me tell you that you are in for a treat. Now, I realize this whole event is happening online, as a lot of these events do, so I want to warn you, Muppet events also happen in real life. And a vast majority of these events are likely to have Craig's fingerprints on them, metaphorically speaking. If you find Craig's actual fingerprints on your Muppet event, you can get them off with a dusting rag and some window cleaner. Whether it's been a screening at the Museum of the Moving Image or an extravaganza in New Zealand, if Craig's involved in an event, you know you're going to have a good time. In fact, that's the reason I wanted to induct him. Craig has been responsible for some of the best days of my life. Of all the shows and concerts I've been to, I've only gotten one program framed. That honor went to Jim Henson's Musical World, which I'm realizing does not work with this backdrop. Oh, okay, there we go. Framed program. Which Craig Shemin wrote the script for. Who else could have so wittily referenced Rolf's Carnegie Hall debut with Jimmy Dean 47 years earlier? And anytime I'm in the Redstone Theater in Astoria sitting with some of my best friends and taking in a Muppet or a Henson project on the big screen, I know it's a gift from Craig to all of us. At his core, Craig is a fan's fan. He loves to watch those things twirl, offering a light breeze that either distracts you or serves as a painful reminder that air conditioning exists. But seriously, Craig is a Muppet fan's Muppet fan. His love for the details and minutiae that more casual fans might overlook have been a vital resource to the fans at Tough Pigs, Muppet Wiki, and more. If you have a question, he almost always has the answer. And when you can really get into those answers, and I mean really get into them, those are my favorite moments with Craig. I can't tell you how many hours I've stayed after moving image screenings just talking about the history of the Muppets, the effort that goes into editing those amazing compilations he makes, and the state of the entertainment industry. He always goes out of his way to make whoever he's talking to feel important. And for all these things, as a writer, event coordinator, trivia master, and friend to Muppet fans everywhere, he rightfully deserves this honor. I just hope it'll fit next to his bowling trophy. It is my incredible honor to induct Craig Shemin into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame.
Hi everyone, this is Craig Shemin. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you live, but a recorded me is almost as good. I wanted to thank you for this honor to being selected in the professional division in the Hall of Fame, and as gratifying as that is, I really feel like a fan. I was a fan long before I was a professional. I was 3 years old when Sesame Street went on the air. I was 10 years old when The Muppet Show went on the air. And I was one of those kids who went to the library and looked up everything I could find out about Jim Henson without ever realizing that I would one day meet him and work for his company. And the stuff that I work on now, I really do with fans in mind. So whether it's the Sam and Friends book or the screenings that we present, or the upcoming Sam and Friends script book coming soon, I really do that with the fans in mind and thinking about what a Henson fan would enjoy, because I'm one of them and I'm one of you, and I thank you for this honor. Bye-bye.
Congratulations to Craig Shemin. Up next, we are just about out of the professional section of the evening, but before we leave, we must say hello to someone who was inducted last year. Please welcome to induct Warwick Browlow-Pike into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame, Hall of Famer, Becca Petunia.
Hi, everybody. So I am so excited that I get to induct Warwick into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. You know, we here at Tough Pigs, it sometimes seems like we give modern Sesame Street a little bit of a hard time. It feels like every month or so we're asking, is Sesame Street funny anymore? Well, let me tell you, one person is unquestionably making Sesame Street funny: the incomparable Warwick Browlow-Pike. As you probably know, Warwick plays Chef Gonger. Warwick plays Chef Gonger, the sensational character find of the 2010s. Of all the new Sesame characters, Gonger is unquestionably the fan favorite. He brings a manic energy to the show that few Sesame characters currently do. It feels like his primary focus is always on being uproariously funny. And Warwick clearly loves playing Gonger. He pitched the idea for Cookie Monster's foodie truck to bring more Gonger to the States, and even worked with my pal Joe Hennes on 2 original Gonger videos for toughpigs.com. Always be plugging. I once spent money on 9 Sesame Street figures I didn't want just to get the 10th one, because that 10th one was Gonger. He's that good. But Warwick is also so much more than just Gonger. He's worked on numerous Muppet and Henson projects, most notably performing the Chamberlain on Age of Resistance and assisting on the UK team of Muppets Most Wanted. Decades ago, Warwick even worked with Palisades to help design the best Muppet figures ever made. But before joining up with the Muppets, Warwick was one of us, a Muppet fan. And honestly, his love of the Muppets and years of Muppet fandom show through in how memorable and lovable Gonger is. And for all these reasons, and surely many more, I'm proud to say, Warwick Browlow-Pike, this nice for you.
Congratulations again, Warwick. And now we come into the big part of the evening where we honor the general fans, the people who aren't celebrities or have the opportunity to work with the Muppets every day, but still bleed their love for the Muppets and everything Jim Henson does. And our first presenter is the reason most of us are speaking here tonight anyway. So please welcome Hall of Famer Danny Horn to induct Kynan Barker into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame.
Hello, everybody. So happy to be here tonight and happy to kick off this section of the Hall of Fame ceremony. Before I start, just always be plugging. If I could just take a moment to mention the fantastic Miss Piggy podcast. Just finished the first season, 11 episodes, super fun. If you haven't heard it before, you can find it on the Tough Pigs Muppet Fan podcast feed. Fantastic Miss Piggy podcast. It is excellent. Now, I am very pleased tonight to pay tribute to an old friend. When I started the Muppet Fan website, Tough Pigs, in 2001, I was under the impression that if you start a website, you're supposed to write all the content by yourself. Like, that's the way I was raised. But I also thought it would be good to make the site black and white with no pictures. So I had a lot of opinions about things at the time. And then I met Kynan Barker, comedy writer Kynan Barker, on probably the Muppet Central forum first, and then the Tough Pigs forum. He lived in Australia, still does. And at the time he was working on the comedy interview show Rove Live. And he was just the funniest person I knew. And I wanted him to write for Tough Pigs. So in 2002, he was the first person to ever, the first person besides me to ever write content for Tough Pigs. He started writing some of those My Week posts. These were themed posts that ran Monday to Friday on a given week that were basically just like emotional outpourings about whatever we were obsessed with that week, kind of take you on a journey. So first Kynan wrote My Week with Sesame Music and My Week with Sesame Home Video and Muppet Music. And then he did My Week with Muppets Online, where he reviewed Tough Pigs itself, which he called entirely egocentric and a vanity project, which was absolutely true. And I loved it. And then he came to visit. He came to the United States, and we were watching Muppet stuff together in person. And we started doing this new two-hander format for an article called My Week with Christmas Vacation, where we would watch Muppet Christmas specials 2 minutes at a time and then talk about it a lot. And then I transcribed it and I put it on the website. It was basically a podcast. It was moving right along, but like in print form. We basically, that was what we invented. In the first one, we talked about John Denver and the Muppets, A Christmas Together, which we did not like. And it was my favorite thing in the world to do, was to write stuff with Kynan. And I still hear people talk about those pieces on like Muppet podcasts, these 20-year-old basically blog posts. We are apparently still relevant as Muppet fan tastemakers. I'm very proud of that. We did a bunch of Christmas pieces. My favorite was actually My Week with Jim Henson's The Storyteller in 2003, where we were just utterly baffled by the show. And it was one of the things that I think just defined what Tough Pigs was in its earliest years. Like there's Grover's Mom, and there's Dark Crystal versus Thelma and Louise, and then there's My Week with Christmas Vacation and The Storyteller. And that was Tough Pigs in the first 5 years. And then Kynan went and saved the Muppets, which was impressive. In 2005, Disney was planning to hold open auditions for other puppeteers to play existing Muppet characters for web series and cruise ship shows, basically replacing the existing Muppet performers with potentially like a group of understudies. And Kynan correctly took exception to that. And he started a fan campaign called One Muppet, One Voice, with a letter writing campaign and a petition signed by thousands of people. And the amazing thing is Disney backed down and stopped doing it. Kynan, I know, does not want to actually take credit for making that happen, but he set up the way that fans expressed that we are just not having this, that we're just not going to support this. And it made a real difference in the history of the Muppets, and we have Kynan to thank for that. So I will wrap this up. I'm very proud and happy to be able to thank Kynan for all the fun that we had and for what he did for Muppet fandom, which was beautiful and funny and extraordinary. Kynan Barker, consider yourself inducted in the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Danny, and congratulations to Kynan, our one of two Australians getting inducted tonight, which is, listen, if I had a nickel for every Australian inducted in the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame, I'd only have 3 nickels, but it's weird that it happened 3 times. And in fact, I think all of because Warwick's, I almost said that all of the non-Americans were from Australia, but Warwick's from Britain, so at least there's that. All right, next, we're having a little fun. You know, we put in one Tough Pig already this evening. Let's put in another. And you know what would be great? If a podcast co-host got to induct her podcast co-hosts. So please welcome to induct Julia Gaskill into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame, Beth Cook.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Tori. So when I first discovered Tough Pigs, it was like stepping out of the black and white farmhouse and into the magical Technicolor world of online Muppet fandom. And of course, it was Julia Gaskill, my guide and ambassador, who floated down in her bubble to loan me the ruby slippers and point the way down the yellow brick road. And I somewhat lose the metaphor here, because then it would be like if Dorothy decided to stay in Oz and start a podcast with Glinda and talk about queer intersectional feminism with all the witches. That's actually one of my favorite things about Julia, is that when her articles and poetry take on that spice of feminist anger, it's from a place of pointing out injustice, and that always comes from a place of love for her fellow beings and the world we share. Sometimes that meant Julia reminding us long before Back to the Rock that, hey, don't forget that Fraggle Rock exists and is great and embodies pretty much everything Jim stood for. And other times that meant bringing some much needed feminist perspective, lovingly calling out when the Muppets can, should, and must do better. Getting to work with Julia on Fraggle Talk is such a joy. No matter how tired we all are when we sit down to record, she's always got some wonderful insight to share that I never would have thought of, some piece of deep Muppet lore that I was unaware of, or a snarky joke that makes me spit take into my tea. I cannot overstate the importance of what Julia did for me personally, but welcoming someone new into the community isn't important because you might just have found the next contributing writer for Tough Pigs. It's important because every Walter out there, the lone Muppet amongst humans, deserves a chance to find where they belong, to be welcomed into a place where they feel accepted, understood, and even celebrated. It's important because it's what the Muppets have always taught us. Julia lives those Muppety values in every aspect of her life. Love fiercely, make art, stay weird. I'm so grateful to call her my colleague, blessed to call her my friend, and honored to induct her into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Julia.
Oh no, not me crying already. Beth, oh my gosh. Okay, all right. Thank you, Beth, so much for that amazing, so heartfelt introduction. Thank you to Tori and everyone behind the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. I'm being inducted this year with so many wonderful people tonight, and also following in the footsteps of some true greats, and I'm just humbled and happy to be here. I am a poet, which means I am a sentimental bitch. So this is going to get sappy and be a little long, so please bear with me. I discovered my love of the Muppets back in December of 2010 when I watched Muppet Christmas Carol 5 times over the span of Christmas break. And discovered is maybe not the right word. Like everyone, I grew up with the Muppets and Sesame always around me. But coming back to it was like a magic trick I finally cracked after 2 decades. I just suddenly got it. I threw myself into watching every Henson property and learning all of the trivia. It was like discovering a treasure trove of riches. And while I at first loved having the Muppets all to myself, it was like my own little secret, I soon craved community. And then after attempting to wade into a couple of, let's say, not as friendly Muppet corners of the internet, I finally landed on a little place called Tough Pigs, and my world was forever changed. Tough Pigs is the absolute embodiment of the lyric, "There's not a word yet for old friends who just met." I am here accepting this honor because of all the good Tough Pigs has given me. When I first joined, I was a not yet diagnosed, mentally ill, neurodivergent, secretly queer weirdo who many in the real world didn't really want to associate with. But joining Tough Pigs felt like a warm hug. It felt like coming home. I would not be speaking if it weren't for all of my friends and co-writers, especially Joe and Ryan, who saw this weird kid who posted a 7-minute long Muppet slam poem on YouTube. And then they said, hey, yeah, let's let her write some pieces for our website. Being a passionate fan is easy, but being given a platform to speak that passion on is a gift, one I have never taken for granted. And it has been an utter joy getting to write for Tough Pigs for over a decade, be it writing about dating a gonzo, or defending the River Bottom Nightmare Band, or the need for constantly more female representation on screen and behind the scenes, equating being bisexual to being a Walter, or forcing my partner to watch holiday specials every December. And perhaps my favorite thing I've ever written for Tough Pigs, an April Fool's piece about a fake Sesame Street WWE crossover special. It's so funny. There was no audience for it, but it made me and my partner so happy. It was very good, trust me. I also have enjoyed writing poetry about the Muppets over the years. The thing I love about poetry is that it allows you to take a topic, pick it apart, and put it back together in unexpected ways. Whether a poem about Jim Henson's funeral, the complex feelings that came with the handoff of Kermit in 2016, or looking at the garbage fire that is our current political sphere through the lens of Sesame Street, you'd be surprised how great poetry and Muppets go hand in hand. And then finally, podcasts. I'm not sure how many of you remember a little thing called Frog Kissin', the first ever Tough Pigs podcast started by myself and Laura Frazier in 2014. And if you've never listened to it, please don't. I promise that the Tough Pigs podcasts of today are held to a much higher standard than two 20-something girls rambling about things like Kermit's swamp years or David Bowie's crotch. But still, despite the awkwardness that was that podcast, I have so much love for it. The Muppet fandom has always been a healthy mix of genders, and especially back in the early 2010s, there weren't as many women who had platforms to speak. Even though that podcast was ultimately kind of meh, it felt important because it was two young women speaking our minds on a fandom we loved, but could also critique. And to bring it full circle, I am now joyfully on the podcast Fraggle Talk Classic with my wonderful inductor, Beth, and the unperceivable void that is Adam. I don't write for Tough Pigs as much as I used to. Being 33, self-employed, an events organizer, and a poet, it's hard to find time to write about felt and fur in my spare time these days. But getting to incorporate Fraggles into my life and chat with Beth and Adam on the regular has helped me remember that I am still valid in this fandom and that I still have more to say. And okay, this speech is already far too long, but I do want to end with some very necessary thank yous. Again, I want to thank Beth and Adam, who bring a lot of joy and puns into my life on the reg. They both make the world a little fragglier just by being themselves. I want to thank Dave Goals for being a top-tier artist, and Gonzo, my absolute favorite. And also, while I'm at it, Jim Henson, because, you know, none of us would be here on Google Meets if it weren't for him. But I also want to thank the likes of, and I'm going to be leaving some people out, Jane Henson, Julianne Buescher, Louise Gold, Calista Hendrickson, Rolly Cruson, Leslie Carrera-Rudolph, Jocelyn Stevenson, and Joan Gans Cooney, and so many other women who have worked on Henson properties over the years. I also want to thank Becca, Beth, and Stacy as my fellow reoccurring co-writers at Tough Pigs. Women in history have rarely gotten their due, and I want to acknowledge these women who have contributed so much to this thing that we all love. And I have so many friends who have brought so much joy into my life because of the Muppets. And some have drifted, but most are still here with me. But all have brought so much to my life. I want to thank Laura Frazier, Anthony Strand, Beth Cook, Matthew Soberman. There are so many names. Ryan Rowe, Becca, Carolyn, Scott, Justin, Dave, Isa, Kathy, Martha, Megan, Matt Wilkie, Ryan Dozier, Jared, Quinn, Smeg, and then many others. I'll never forget when I was 22 and broke and mentioned on the Tough Pigs forum that I could not afford to buy new socks. And then that birthday that year, I received at least a dozen packages filled with socks in the mail. And it is still to this day the most loving thing a group of people has ever done for me. I hold that. So, and I still have so many of those socks. And then finally, last but not least, I do want to thank, he is not here, but I do want to thank Joe Hennes. Joe Hennes is someone who I have felt safe over the years, bringing any issues and questions to the entire time I've been at Tough Pigs. He has championed me in ways that he probably has no idea how much they've meant to me. And he's just a dang good friend. And one day, I swear, we'll see the Mountain Goats in concert together. That is the end of my speech. I am so grateful and thankful to be here. Thank you all so much. I love you. I love the Muppets. Thank you. I'm excited to see everyone else's speeches. All right.
Woo! Oh, that was great. So when I scheduled today, I did not realize that today was actually a very important date for us Muppet fans. I'm, of course, talking about the release of the Beach Boys documentary now on Disney+. You can watch it now. We'll all hear all about Brian Wilson and that other guy. Wait. No. There's something there's something else important today, but I can't. Oh, today just happens to be Miss Piggy's 5th. Oh, what's that? If I say that, she'll karate chop me where? Today just happens to be Miss Piggy's 25th birthday. And, you know, when I found out that this was Miss Piggy's 25th birthday, I was like, we're doing this whole big celebration of the Muppets. We have to do this. So please enjoy a tribute, this video tribute compiling some of her finest moments over the last 25 years.
Introduction, in fact, to Miss Piggy, because as I say, I think she's so sensational. I mean, the really most beautiful creature that I've ever set eyes on. I really mean it. I am madly, would you welcome Miss Piggy?
Miss Piggy, whippoorwills, Miss Piggy, everything that's lovely, warm, and spring. Miss Piggy, fantasy, Miss Piggy, ecstasy, Miss Piggy, all that's fair or fine or wonderful or anything, Miss Piggy. Where does the rapture begin and grow? Where does devotion and passion go? One caress, Miss Piggy, all the world ever wanted was you, a dream come true. Ah, Miss Piggy, it's you. Happiness, Miss Piggy, one caress, Miss Piggy, all the world ever wanted was you, a dream come true. Ah, Miss Piggy, it's you, it's you, it's
And again, happy birthday to the incredible Miss Piggy. Here's to another 25 years. Anyway, we're talking a lot about Miss Piggy tonight. And there's something so magical about the fantastic Miss Piggy. And very few understand what makes Miss Piggy that magical. But somebody who understands practically more than anybody else is Peter Savieri. While many other Muppet fan artists have a distinct style that you can pick out of a crowd, Peter has something a bit different, a distinct character. In my opinion, besides probably Michael Thrift, nobody draws Miss Piggy that good other than Peter. Peter's Miss Piggy is on an absolute another level. Every time he draws the fantastic Miss Piggy, he adds more detail, care, and love than practically any other artist. They share an inseparable bond between the two that has led to some of the greatest illustrations of that character ever put to page. It's very rare somebody can get to that magnitude of artistry that Peter has basically off of one character alone, but yet here he is, even being able to draw Miss Piggy in an official capacity in the 2011 Muppet movie. An iconic, beautiful image of her draped in red. Recently on Danny Horn's podcast, I'm going to plug for you again, him, Danny, and Jamie talked for hours about Miss Piggy, and you can just tell that if I told Peter, hey, you have 24 hours, just talk about Miss Piggy for 24 hours straight, he could, and he would probably love every minute of it, as long as he got to take occasional breaks to probably draw her. And it is my absolute honor to induct the king of Miss Piggy himself, Peter Savieri, into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Peter. You're now officially the third Australian. Now, there has been a weird pattern with the first 2 years of this institution where we only inducted one fan artist each year. It was Smig the first year and Danny Horn the second. Oh, sorry, not Danny Horn. I was staring at Danny. It was Smig the first year and Dave Hulteen the second year. But this year, our voters thankfully decided to rectify that by not just putting in one fan artist, not just two, but three. Yes, we got finally 3 fan artists in this year, including... So I mentioned earlier about distinct styles. And, well, nobody has a more distinct style than Kenny Durkin. His bold and bright illustrations are easy to pick out of a crowd, but they are also so high quality. It's hard to explain, or at least I find it hard to explain, what's so good about art. I know what I like, and what I like is Kenny Durkin's style. It's just good. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, but very bold, very distinctive, but yet very, very, very good. And it is with my honor to induct Kenny Durkin into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame.
I didn't see you there. Hi, it's your old pal Kenny Durkin. I'm just working on some artwork here. I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you guys tonight. I had to pre-record this because I'm a grown-up and I have to work for a living. Actually, that's not true. I don't work and I'm not a grown-up. Anyways, thank you all for this award, this honor. I've been a Muppet fan since 1971. That's a long time. I was born a couple of years after Sesame Street started, and that's where the love started for me. And I remember one of the first things I ever did was draw Kermit and Grover from Sesame Street, because they were only on once a day. And when the Sesame Street ended, I missed them, so I drew them so they'd always be with me. And as I grew up and I got a little older and I kind of grew out of Sesame Street a little bit, the Muppet Show came along. And I followed Kermit over to the Muppet Show and fell in love all over again. And I started to learn that there were adults having fun and being silly, and you could be an adult and be silly, and that was very comforting to me, because I sure as heck didn't want to grow up. And then when I got a little bit older, the Creature Shop came along, and we had the Dark Crystal and Labyrinth, and there was just this explosion. And then it was the Jim Henson Hour, and it was the Storyteller, and all these things. And it was Jim Henson. It was Jim. Jim is the reason for all of this. Jim is my creative inspiration. And when he died, it took a while for me to get over that. But right around the year 2000, I moved down to Florida and I started working at Disney World. And I don't know, it started to, I was missing my friends. And so I started drawing them again. And it felt great. And I started sharing it with people because the internet was coming in to being, and people were liking it and responding to it. And so the things that were making me happy were making them happy. And I found out that there were people out there in the world that were just like me. And suddenly they were taking my artwork and they were wearing it on shirts like this. Hopefully not ripped off shirts. I'm the king of this design being ripped off, but and seeing it on stickers on their laptops and pictures on their walls behind them, my artwork. So my artwork became a part of your lives. And just as Jim was a part of my life, I became a part of your lives through Jim and the Muppets. And that was really exciting to me. And it's been great creating for me. And it's been great that you've been responding so well. And a lot of ways I've been creating for you too. And I'm going to continue doing it. I got some things coming up that you're really going to like. They're going to knock your socks off. They're going to knock your sock puppets off. You're going to love this stuff that's coming out. Not that. That's just a prop. Don't worry about that. So thank you to everyone. Thank you to Jim. Thank you to the Hanson family. Thank you to the Muppet fan community. All my my fellow Muppet artists, my fellow Muppet fan artists, Jamie, Carroll, Dave, Hulteen, Smig, Noah. I'm going to leave out a bunch of people, but you're all in my thoughts. Stuart, Reeves, of course, and it goes on and on and on. And all the Muppet fan sites and everybody else. And I can go on forever about this, but I'm not going to. So, and plus it's getting sweaty in here and I got to turn the fan on and you won't be able to hear me anymore. So have a good one. Thank you so much. I love you all. And stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Dave Hulteen, and tonight I'm honored to talk about my dear friend, Jamie Carroll. We all know about Jamie's work with the incredible Palisades toy line, but it's this incredible attention to detail that truly launches him well beyond being just another fan and a really talented fan artist. Jamie represents the heart of Muppet fandom and the Muppets themselves. Kindness, determination, inclusivity, and a level of insanity that can border on chaos.
Jamie can get dead set focused on something and also have ADD at the same time, which is like, these are two conflicting things. I don't know how you do that.
Well, I'm crazy.
He's crazy.
I don't know when he sleeps.
I don't sleep, Dave. I don't sleep.
I don't know what he's on. I don't know. I'd like some of it.
Who knows how much Pro Plus, caffeine supplement that guy has.
He can be intense.
In 2020, Jamie was the art director for Tough Pig's 20th anniversary project dubbed The Great Muppet Mural. Jamie's leadership on that project alone cannot be overstated because it wasn't just about wrangling so many other artists, their egos, and steering the ship over the finish line. Jamie paid close attention to things like what time of day various artists were most responsive to messages, who needed special attention for more complex scenes or effects, and genuinely encouraged everyone so that all of us wanted to impress Jamie more than the thousands of other fans who were eager to praise the work online. In the last several years, Jamie has doubled down on showing his love for our beloved fandom by drawing vignettes of characters in a way that shows off his raw talent in a more exposed and personal way, even allowing us into his process to create some of the most gorgeous and authentic fan art I personally have ever seen. I can go on for hours about Jamie, but I already did when we put together the Making of the Great Muppet Mural documentary, which is just as much of a film about Jamie as it is about the mural. And for other reasons I'm not legally allowed to discuss, a court settlement requires I encourage you to go watch that documentary on YouTube right now. Please, I can't afford another lawsuit from Lucas Ross again. He seems all folksy and charming until you have to deal with his, quite frankly, highly unethical beekeepers union. They want you to think that honey is some traditional lovely sweetener that makes your nighttime milky tea all sweet and magical, unless you go on Twitter and say that Luke. Overall, Jamie is an incredibly talented artist. I'm also lucky enough to call a great friend. Between his ability to communicate with such a wide variety of personalities amongst fans, his behemoth of a portfolio overflowing with work from the various branches of the Muppets and other big-name IPs, his loving and gorgeous fan art, and his caring but manic personality, I am honored to induct my friend and yours, Jamie Carroll, to the 2024 class of the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. Congratulations, bud.
Wow. Oh, that is very sweet. Oh my gosh. As far as this goes, I mean, you know, I just reflected on this. I don't really have a speech, but I was thinking, you know, earlier today that it's 25 years ago that I joined the fan community this year. I remember it was 99, and the internet for the Muppet fans became like the Mayhem Muppet bus, where everyone just kind of got on board and kept going, and we've grown and changed all these years, and it's just so there's so many intersecting lines of fans and then the professionalism, the performers, and it all gets so mixed up, and most of us, we all get to have a little part of it, which I think is amazing. So I don't see anyone as just a fan, and I don't see anyone as just a performer. We're all kind of bits and parts of all of it. And Dave and I's friendship started out as a very unlikely one, and it became probably my greatest one in the Muppet fandom. And we got to meet last April when I went to New York, and that was the first time I've actually met him in person in all of these years, and it was insane because like we've talked about personal things and so much for you know, God, decade and a half more. I mean, for very, very, very long time. And he's such a special guy. He's such a good guy. And it's funny how people on the internet were happier that we met almost than we were, which I thought was wonderful. And I think it's a testament to Muppet fandom. And you know, I started off with Muppet fan art and fandom, you know, doing the old Delphi forums back in the day, and then I got to do some stuff for some of the websites and menus, interactive menus. That was back in Muppet Central days, very long time ago. And gosh, that was like 22 years ago. And then I got to do you know, stuff with Palisades and just a lot of, you know, Diamond Select. I got to do some art direction for them as well, and just lots of stuff, lots of opportunities over the years. And it's also afforded me to meet great people like Karen Prowl. You know, we got to I remember years ago Warwick, who I've known since before he was a performer, when he was just a fanatic like the rest of us. And let me tell you, he still very much is. He got me linked in with Karen and Mike Quinn, and I went to the Bay Area Puppetry Guild for a few times, which is set up here. It's Frank Oz's parents started it all those years ago, and I got to go there and meet them. And oh gosh, so I mean, all of those things. It's just, as I said, with the Muppet fandom, it's just there's so much, and I am so grateful. And the fact that, like, you know, Muppet fans even like my fellow Muppet fans even like my work and like my interpretations of the characters is huge. Because they will voice their opinion if they don't like them and have. But so yeah, I'm just very grateful, and thank you, Tori, for this opportunity and everything. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Anthony Strand, one of the hosts of Moving Right Along, a Muppet movie podcast brought to you by toughpigs.com. Our show wouldn't be possible without FrogFan76. I remember the first time I ever saw the bestest Muppet fan on the internet. My co-host Ryan sent me a link. He said, you gotta check this out. It was a link to FrogFan's Facebook page, where he had an entire album of pictures of himself watching the Muppet Show. What's so revolutionary about this is that it perfectly captures what it feels like to be a Muppet fan, online especially. You love the Muppet Show. You want to talk to everyone about the Muppet Show. And in real life, that isn't always possible. But we get to do that on the internet. FrogFan76 was and is a celebration of that. He showed us that it's okay to obsess about one character. I think all the time about FrogFan's obsession with Mildred Huckstetter. FrogFan led the way for other fans. My co-host Ryan loves Granny Fanny Nesselrode. Tough Pig's co-owner Jarrod Fairclough loves Mr. Curly Twirly. I myself wrote a 10,000-word article about Mo Frackle, and I interviewed 8 people for it. I couldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that if FrogFan76 hadn't said, hey, it might be kind of funny to obsess over an obscure Muppet, but it's okay. We all do it. Nothing has ever captured the real experience of being a hardcore Muppet fan online quite the way FrogFan76's videos did. He hasn't made any new material in years, but I constantly hope he will, because I miss him very much, and I think about all of his videos fondly. He calls himself the bestest Muppet fan on the internet, and it's no joke. Here's to you, FrogFan76. You'll always be the bestest in our hearts.
Hey everyone, my name's Scott Hanson. I'm one of the admins of Muppet Wiki, and I am here to induct Tony Whitaker into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. So, I've known Tony for many years now, getting to know him first on the Muppet Central and Tough Pigs forums. Back in the days of tape trading through the mail, he provided for me a collection of taped from TV copies of the Sesame Street episodes from 1998, where Slimy goes into space. My daughter and I were watching a lot of Sesame Street in those days, and we were both big space enthusiasts, so I owe Tony a debt of gratitude for being the source of that piece of joy in my life. I really appreciate that, Tony. That meant a lot to me. Once he had my address, I recall that at some point I started receiving lists of Sesame Street episode notes in the mail, as well as original copies of his own Strand art, which I was always delighted to see. I can't remember what was in those episode notes, but I do know that he was already laying the groundwork for what would become the Wiki's Sesame Street episode guides years later, which was really impressive for the time, because in those days we were really just kind of going on whatever we had, taped off of TV. We didn't have access to the materials that we have now. So Tony was really laying the groundwork for this many years before we really started to formalize it. And obviously to that end, Tony was, of course, a natural candidate to be a regular wiki editor. He made his first edit on the wiki on March 2nd, 2006, just 3 months after we got things started. And since that time, he's made over 54,000 edits on the wiki and has uploaded over 22,000 images. A few years ago, I don't know exactly when, but I noticed that Tony's internet presence ramped up. I think he got a new laptop or something, but whatever it was, his productivity increased seemingly overnight. And not only was he editing more on the wiki, but his skill in navigating the ins and outs of how to make the wiki work and how to put it all together was developing really well. So before too long, it became clear to myself and the other wiki administrators that we really ought to invite Tony to become an admin. He graciously took up that role in June of 2022, and he's been instrumental in crafting wiki policy and enhancing our recently completed Sesame Street episode guide. And due to his, completely baffling to me encyclopedic brain, a real miracle worker when it comes to building out cast lists for obscure Muppet characters, which has been a lot of fun putting together in are the performer galleries that we've been building for the past couple of years. They're really impressive, and Tony's been a big part of that, along with a lot of other folks on the wiki. His dedication to the mission of the wiki and to the Muppet fandom in general is exemplary, and a feat that should make Cheryl Hardwick and Maggie Bloomfield proud. He's an outstanding model of cooperation. Tony, I hope our friendship continues to grow, and I'm excited about all the amazing things we have to look forward to working on together in the future. Congratulations, Tony Whitaker, 2024 Muppet Fan Hall of Famer.
Hey everybody. Uh, Sorry, I'm not that good with my words. Talking. I'm better at I guess typing. And just thank you for those very kind words. And thanks to just all the other editors too, Danny and Shane, Gav, Maddox, Andrew. Oh, I'm forgetting so many names right now. Danny, that one. Yeah. Uh, it's weird because years ago, back in my uh, elementary school days, I was always looking at these Muppet books, and eventually I just started I don't know, I just liked making lists of things I wanted to know more about. And one of them was like, I never revealed this to anybody, but there's this one notebook I had just writing all of the Sesame Street songs I knew. I just wanted to know. I just had these videos of them, and just like writing about them. And then I had other lists of things like Kermit News's that it was like I was compiling this information for myself just to sort of get a history of Sesame Street, which continues to be my favorite program. And then came Muppet Central, and I realized that there's this whole bunch of people that liked the same things I liked. And then out of that, I just started to reach out to them more and learn more about this community of people. Just how amazing everybody is. And then eventually came Muppet Wiki, and it turned out that it was an outlet for this stuff that I had been collecting and learning about. And I just enjoy helping with that and letting other people learn more about it too. And wow, and just it was just a few years ago. Well, for many years, I just didn't have a computer. I would use the library's computers and try to do whatever I could, either help out or just enjoy Hanson stuff. Then over the last few years, I finally was able to get my hands on a laptop, and I just began to learn how to do other stuff to help the community online and help get my art out there. So I'm just really happy and grateful that I could be able to do all this and meet all these amazing people, and that you guys and gals and in betwixters, as Jamdalin says, you just encourage me to keep going and just keep doing what I've been doing, and just enjoying it. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this and be able to share what I can with everybody. Just thank you, everyone.
And congratulations, Tony. Thank you. Congratulations. we've got one more to do. And before I introduce the inductor, gotta put a little hat on real quick. I want to take a personal note real quick and say this final inductee was the author of the very first Tough Pigs article I ever read. And so while all of these inductees mean a lot to me, he means so much to me as a friend and as a colleague. And so please welcome, I'm so happy he's getting in tonight, but to induct him, please welcome to induct Matthew Soberman into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. Please welcome Hall of Famer Joe Hennes.
Hi, everybody. Joe Hennes from toughpigs.com here. So sorry I can't be there live and in person, but I hope you appreciate this pre-taped message that I bring to you as my gift. About 75 years ago, Ryan, Rowe, and I used to host this monthly live show in Brooklyn, New York called the Muppet Vault. Every month, we would arrive at the venue, and there was this guy who was waiting by the door hours before everyone else. Apparently, he came all the way in from Long Island wearing one of the 2 Muppet shirts that he owned, and he sat at the front of the line like he was waiting for tickets to the Phantom Menace on opening night. When we would do trivia during the show, he knew every answer. We gave him a lot of free prizes back then. And when the show was over, he'd hover near us just to have some fellow Muppet fans to geek out with. When the Muppet Vault got its first press mention, the article included a picture of him. When we got to know him more than just that guy who shows up to the Muppet Vault, he jumped at the chance to write an article about Muppet horses for Tough Pigs. That man, that myth, that legend is Matthew Soberman. When I think of Matthew, the first word that comes to mind is Matthew. The second word that comes to mind is ice cream, which I understand is actually 2 words, but I'm always thinking about ice cream. The third word that I think of is dedication. Matthew is dedicated. He is the epitome of the Muppet fan who was born to write for Tough Pigs. He's full of ideas. He has a quick wit, a great sense of humor. He knows more about Muppets than half the people watching this video, which, as you know, is pretty impressive. Without Matthew, Tough Pigs wouldn't have its annual April Fool's Day gags, our classic Sesame Street 1550 series, any number of classic articles that he either conceived of or brought invaluable material to. And it's not just Muppets that he loves. He is full of brain-tickling trivia. He has a pure love of Disney and Disney theme parks. And he has a genuine appreciation for sports, which I don't understand in the slightest, but good for you, Matthew. Is there anything this man doesn't love? Probably, but those things probably stink. It's been an absolute joy to have the privilege of working alongside Matthew for so many years and to watch him grow as a writer and as a friend. I am so very proud to induct Matthew Soberman into the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Matthew.
Oh, I'm so flustered I lost my speech. Thank you, Joe, for that wonderful speech, and a huge thanks to Tori for putting this whole event together. And to everyone who nominated and voted for me, I want to this is an honor beyond measure. I also want to extend my congratulations to everybody in this year's class: Danny, Neil, Warwick, Leslie, Craig, Julia, Kynan, Jamie, Kenny, Peter, Tony, and Frogfan. You all continue to inspire and captivate me, and it is an honor to call you my fellow inductees. And a huge thank you to Jim Henson and everyone who has helped bring the Muppets to life and keep the magic alive over all these years. I know we're celebrating Miss Piggy, but a very happy pre-birthday in just a few hours. A happy 80th birthday to Frank Oz. Frank's turning 80 tomorrow. You will notice that I'm going to be saying thank you a lot because I didn't get to this moment all on my own. A lot of people have fostered my love of Muppets over the years and allowed me to spread my creative wings. First off, I want to thank the folks who introduced me to the Muppets as a kid, my parents, Ellen and Jamie. Without you, I might have turned out normal, and who the hell wants that? I want to also thank my brothers, Alex and David, for tolerating my obsessive passion for Muppets, mostly because they love them too. I think I always knew I was a Muppet fan, but I didn't know just how big a fan I was until later in life. I do have a confession to make. Back in high school, Alex directed a play his senior year, and the whole family decided to go see it one night. I may have exaggerated a stomachache to stay home and watch the world television premiere of The Muppets Wizard of Oz. Don't feel too bad since I saw the play the day before, and in watching the movie, I already punished myself. Thank you for all the trips to Sesame Place, the yearly family viewings of the Muppet Christmas Carol, and for finding enough room in the car to bring back all those Hanson exhibition mugs from Baltimore, to name just a few things you've done for me. Next on the thanks parade has to be Danny Horn, the founder of the feast, because you went on a week-long exploration of the DVDs that came enclosed with boxes of General Mills cereals I found Tough Pigs early on in college. And because I was lucky enough to go to school in New York City, I had the opportunity to attend the Muppet Vaults where, as Joe explained, I was the weirdo that showed up an hour before the doors opened just so I could have the best seat. That great atmosphere motivated me to join the Tough Pigs Forum, where I met so many great friends. After one Muppet Vault in February, a number of folks stuck around to celebrate Ryan Rowe's birthday. When I told his then girlfriend and now wife, Stacy Rosen, that I had joined the forum, she insisted I stay and be part of the fun. From then on, I knew I had a home with Tough Pigs. Stacy, thank you for making me feel like family. I will never forget your kindness, and I hope to try and make like a Fraggle and pass it on. That feeling of belonging was made official when Joe offhandedly said I could write something for the website. I don't think either of us knew at that moment that it was the birth of an incredible relationship. I went from being the weirdo that showed up an hour early to the weirdo that showed up an hour early and got in for free. To Joe, Ryan, and Jarrod, thank you for letting me stick around. I know it was a close vote, and my deepest sympathy to Jarrod for being outvoted. In the 12 years since that first piece, you've helped me grow as a writer and let me write everything from emotional pieces straight from my heart to incredibly unhinged stuff that makes me question my own sanity. Thanks for letting me stick around and keep my Reese's peanut butter cups in the break room fridge. To my fellow Tough Pigs writers, thank you all for being incredible writers, podcasters, and most important of all, friends. It is a gift to be able to call you my colleagues. Anthony, thank you for the monthly live-action Disney discussion and understanding my socially debilitating addictions to movies released in 1990. Julia, we started at Tough Pigs the same week, and it's been a joy to watch you grow as a writer and presenter. I'll always think of you as my Tough Pigs twin, so thank you for sharing the journey with me. Becca, thank you for getting my vibe and going with it, whether it's just chatting online or going full tilt in the podcast. Louie, thank you for being the coolest person in the room no matter where you are. Elmo's lucky to have you as a writer. Shane, thank you for giving so much, whether it's answering just about any Muppet-related question, giving the perfect joke for the situation, or just showing up when they need you. Beth, thank you for being incredibly loving and supporting no matter what's going on. JD, I don't care what you say. You are one of the funniest people I know. It's a joy to be able to collaborate with you, being it on a podcast or an April Fool's prank. And to Caitlin, I hope I'm saying that right. You have no idea how elated I was to finally have someone else on staff who loves sports as much as I do. Thank you for being a kindred spirit. A big shout out to the regulars at the Museum of the Moving Image, including many of the folks I've already mentioned, as well as John Popovich, Zach Walliner, Spencer Cohen, and Will Carroll. Also a big thanks to the crew at Screenhole TV, Tyler Mann, Tom Mordred, and Ben Harris for being there when I need you, and letting me spread the good word of Tough Pigs. And lastly, I want to thank you. Yes, you. See, aren't you glad you waited till the end? I would be one man shouting into the void without reading or watching, without you reading or watching or listening to what I have to say. The Muppet fandom is unlike any other out there because of all you amazing people. I am privileged to be able to call myself a Muppet fan. This has been a dream. And so to end with a Muppet quote, because that's kind of my thing, it's the dream that gets better the more people you share it with. And well, I found a whole bunch of friends who have that same dream. And it kind of makes us like a family. Thank you all for being part of my wonderful Muppet fan family.
Congratulations, buddy. I'm really happy
thank
for you.
you.
But I want to offer one more time, once again, congratulations to the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame, class of 2024, Warwick Browlow-Pike, Leslie Carra-Rudolph, Craig Shemin, Danny Trejo, Neil Patrick Harris, Kynan Barker, Jamie Carroll, Kenny Durkin, FrogFan76, Julia Gaskill, Peter Savieri, Matthew Soberman, and of course, Tony Whitaker. Well, that just about wraps us up for another one. But before we go, I would like to once again thank our amazing presenters, Jarrod Fairclough, Matthew Soberman, Becca Petunia, Danny Horn, Beth Cook, Dave Hulteen, Anthony Strand, Scott Hanson, and Joe Hennes. I also want to thank, heard his name enough tonight, but he needs more thank you. Thank you again to Matthew Soberman for writing with me our amazing bios that you can read in the program. Thank you to Sam Allen for creating the Muppet Fan Hall of Fame website. Thank you so much to Shane Connolly for designing our fantastic logo. And thank you to everybody who nominated somebody for the Hall of Fame this year. And thank you to everybody who voted for the Hall of Fame this year. Thank you to the All-Elusive Committee for doing that. We will see you next time. We will see you. I'm making the announcement now because you got, like Danny Horn's always saying, you gotta keep plugging. I will see you all on January 11th, 2025 for the 4th annual Muppet Twitter Awards. And we will see you next May for the 4th annual Muppet Fan Hall of Fame. It's going to be weird. I got a feeling next year's going to be really unhinged. Good night, everybody!